Section 4.2, writing equations in point-slope form. So let's take a look at another type of word problem, see how we can, once again, use a linear equation or linear function to solve it. So let's decide you want to buy a PlayStation 6 for $550. That's right, a PlayStation 6. Sure, the PlayStation 5 isn't on the market yet. You're that advanced. You want the 6. So you have a job, and you've had it for the last 6 months, consistently working the same hours every week. After the second month, you had $200 saved. Right now, 6 months into your job, you have $360 saved. If we use a linear function, we can model this situation to figure out how long it will take us to save for the PS6. So, where do we begin? Well, we have to start with what we know, which, when we're talking about lines, often comes down to points. We know that if we write ordered pairs, we have information that connects the number of months we've worked to the amount of money that we have saved. Now, keep in mind that we want to start with our x here as our independent variable. Y is going to be our dependent variable. We usually think that the dependent variable depends on the independent variable. So we would think that the money saved depends on the number of months that we work. That's why I have the money saved as my y and the number of months worked as my x. So after 2 months, I've saved $200. After 6 months, that's the now in this problem, we've saved $360. Well, if I have 2 points, I know that I can find slope. And so I need to bring up the slope formula. Of course, the slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, it doesn't matter which ordered pairs I use as my 1s and my 2s as long as I'm consistent. So I'll start with my bottom point as my 2s here. So I'm going to have y2 is 360 minus y1 is 200 over x2 is 6 minus x1 is 2. 360 minus 200 is 160. 6 minus 2 is 4. And 160 over 4 reduces to 40. I don't want to write it as 40 over 1. When I'm writing my final slope, I just want it to be 40. Now, what that corresponds to is that's my change in money saved compared to my change in months. So that means that I'm basically saving an extra $40 a month. That's the connection to this problem here. That's going to be important when I figure out how long I have to wait to save up for the PS6. Now, this is a nice formula. It's called point-slope form. It's a not very clever name. It comes from a point, which would be x1 and y1, and the slope, which is m. And so this is a formula that allows us to write the equation of a line really easily. What we do is we use the slope that we found. Now, the slope that we found was 40. And we can use either point. So the 2 points that we had were 2, 200, and 6, 360. You can use either one of these, and you're going to end up with the same answer. Let's do it for the first one here, the 2, 200. So I'm going to plug into my formula here. Now I keep the y just as a y, minus my y1 is the y coordinate for my point, that's 200, equals my m is my slope, which is 40. Open my parentheses, my x stays the same, minus my x1 is the x coordinate of my point, which is 2. I have to start by making sure I distribute my 40. So I'm going to have y minus 200 equals 40x minus 80. And now I'm going to add 200 to each side, and when I do that, I get y equals 40x plus 120, which is now in slope-intercept form. So point-slope form leads us pretty quickly into slope-intercept form, and that's actually a very convenient thing. I want you to pause the video and try doing this with the other point. You should end up with the exact same answer. All right, how'd you do? All right, so hopefully that's what you found, that you came back here and you got the same equation. So when we look at this equation, we see that we still have our slope of 40, which is basically the number of dollars that we're getting every month. And the 120, well, that's our starting point. That's our y-intercept. So that means that before we started saving, we already had $120 that we could set aside for the PS6. So we weren't starting from zero. We actually were starting somewhere here. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. All right, well, now that we've got our equation, let's put it to work. What I've done here is I've just rewritten my equation as a function. So I can think of this as f of x equals 40x plus 120. And remember, I'm trying to figure out when I can save up and pay for the PS6, which originally cost $550. Now that's the cost, which is the y value or the f of x value. So I'm really looking to solve so that f of x equals 550. So in order to do this, I'm not going to be plugging 550 in for x. If I plug in 550 for x, that's figuring out how much money I'm going to have if I keep on working this job for, well, actually the next 550 months or the next basically almost 46 years. That's not what I'm looking for. So I'm going to set up my equation. 550 equals 40x plus 120. Subtracting 120 from each side, I'm going to get 430 equals 40x. And when I divide that by 40, I get x equals 10.75. So it doesn't come out totally evenly, but that's okay because we're not expecting we're necessarily going to end up at exactly the right spot at the end of a month and have exactly enough for the PlayStation. So this means that I have to go 10.75 months. Well, if I'm getting paid weekly, that might be okay. That might be 10 months and 3/4 of a month, 3 weeks, something like that. If I get paid halfway through the month or only every 2 weeks or every month, then I'm going to have to wait until the 11 months are up. But remember that this is 11 months from when I began working. So since I've already worked for 6 months, I'm only going to have to wait at most another 5 months. And so that's the conclusion that we can draw. I hope you've seen that by using point-slope form, which is a really convenient format, that you're able to write the equation of a line.